皆さん、こんにちは. So today I wanted to make a short video about how to learn Japanese watching anime because I actually learned how to pronounce a lot of words in Japanese thanks to anime. I learned a lot of words too. But we do need to know a few things in order to don't mess up or actually use it good as a learning tool. So this is what we will be talking here today. What to take into account when you're watching an anime, what to use and what not, etc. So let's go. Okay, so what we will see here is, first of all, the materials that you could use to start, well, not to start, to learn Japanese while you're watching anime. Also, you need to know what you can use to learn or what exactly to learn, so we will also talk about that. We'll also see the formal and informal speech, very important when we are learning Japanese. We need to know what's formal, what's informal, and what is actually good to use in real life setting and whatnot. Also, the vocabulary type. And 3 key points that you can use while you're watching anime to remember words, etc. So the materials are very straightforward, just some series that you would like to watch or that you like, you could already watch it, a notebook or an online document where you can write everything. I do recommend the notebook better because I've done both things while I'm watching an anime, and just pausing it and going again to the document, the Google Doc or whatever, to write the words it's a little bit, no. It's better to have a notebook and you write it like that while you're watching. This way it's not so annoying. So know what to learn. What do I mean by that? So first of all, you need to find the right series. For example, if I want to learn words about school, I will search something related to that. And also take into account or keep in mind that some animes are more difficult to understand than others. For example, if you're just starting, just beginning, well, not just right now because it can be a little bit hard, but you already studied Japanese for a few months and you want to check out something. For example, I would see a Doraemon movie. I would not see, I don't know, something more complicated. I would just go straight forward to the more childish part of the anime, for sure. Then be clear what you want to study because, for example, like I said, I would check out a more childish movie if I'm just starting. Or for example, I want to learn a specific type of vocabulary, I would check another thing. And if you're watching anime, it's better just to keep it on the vocabulary area. If you want to, just don't study grammar with it, because just use grammar as a tool to learn vocabulary, but don't actually learn grammar with it. If you hear something that you studied, great, but just don't study from it. So the formal and informal speech. So in Japanese we have different ways of speech, well, in other languages too, but for example in Japanese we have the informal speech, then we have the formal speech, and then we have an even more formal way of speaking. Usually when we start learning Japanese, we learn the kind of neutral formal, the formal that we could use with anybody and be polite. It's not the more formal Japanese, but it's not either the informal. The thing is, in Japanese, in the anime, we will usually see usually it's informal speech. So take that into account, that what you hear is not how you probably would speak to somebody. That's very important. And I mean that by, for example, words. There are words that you could hear that we would not use when we talk with somebody, or expressions, and also the grammar. They do eat a lot of things when they speak in informal. So keep that into account. Usually it's informal speech. And if it's formal, it could also appear the more formal type of speech, so remember that. So, what I was talking about earlier was about the vocabulary type, how I would choose a Doraemon movie if I'm just starting, because, for example, if you want something more basic, you search for something kids would see, or for example, I don't know, a school anime, etc. Then we have like the magic anime or adventure anime. That vocabulary will be more let's say intermediate, meaning that you will have words related to magic, related to weapons, related to this kind of stuff. So keep that in mind. It's not vocabulary that you would use in a regular day basis. It's also important to know because it can appear in a series, it can appear in a movie, it can appear in a conversation, of course, but it's not something like something that you would say every day. It's not. And then keep in mind that there are anime series that have very hard vocabulary or very specific. Like, for example, Detective Conan. I've never watched it in Japanese, but I remember I watched it in my own language, and they had, like, when Conan was thinking of, I don't know, something that he has to resolve and was checking out the letters and the numbers. I was confused even in my language, so keep that into mind that some series are, of course, much more difficult to understand than others. Why it's good, the anime, to learn vocabulary in Japanese? Because you will hear it many times. So what I recommend you to do is in your notebook, instead of just, I don't know, writing a word and then searching for it. If you are a beginner, that's not very useful. I would just write down those words that I heard like 20 times and I feel that I already know the meaning. So I would write that down. I would 100% make sure that that's correct. For example, you can search the word in jisho.org. It's an online dictionary. And then you check it out. You make sure that the meaning is correct. And then, because you will hear it so many times, it will repeat on and on and on. You will eventually memorize that word for sure. Then about grammar, I already told you that don't use it, like don't try to learn grammar from it, of course. But it is true that sometimes if you know already a little bit of grammar, it can help you to learn a word. For example, you can actually recognize a verb if you heard that verb many times, like for example, tabemasu. You can then check it out and then you can actually learn it. So grammar will be useful in this kind of situations. And finally, pronunciation is the best thing about anime. You can actually repeat, or you can, because you hear it so many times, you will eventually learn how to pronounce the words or Japanese in general correctly. So I hope you liked this very short video about learning Japanese with anime, and see you later. Mata ne!